All right. So, is 42 the meaning of life? What do you think? Is 42 the meaning of life, Wahid?
Well, you're asking me. I'm 42.
All right. Okay. So a bit of background. If you haven't watched the rest of the live stream, my tongue is getting a bit funny because I haven't eaten the whole day and a bit thirsty, right? Anyway, so um, it's based on this movie, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Why am I talking about it especially? Because Elon Musk really likes it. He said it recently. He actually talked about 42 being the meaning of life. Okay. He's kind of joking, but it's a very important topic. Okay. Okay. And as usual, I'm just going to try to dive into it. Here goes, little quote. And I, God, did not create the universe and the earth and all that is between them just for fun. Okay, it's a quote from the Holy Quran. Okay, what's that got to do with anything? Okay, so one look at the smooth running machinery that not only made us, but also is keeping us alive. Okay, that is Earth. Earth is like a great big machine, okay, as well as the universe and everything else, right? Okay, all these things somehow created us and keep us alive. Okay, you should that reality should make you realize that there is a God and that God was not messing around when God made us. Okay, so maybe that's a bit hard for people to really appreciate because nature runs so smoothly that we take it for granted. Now, let me tell you the opposite of nature, like a rubbish version of nature. Imagine instead of beautiful, fluffy clouds floating around in the sky, imagine if there were nasty big tins that collected water. Okay, and they were connected on ropes, and there were massive big wheels that pulled the ropes from one place to another, and then that there was another one for air that somehow recycled the air, and it was some nasty system, right? And we could see it. We could physically see it. We couldn't ignore the clouds because the clouds are beautiful. We can kind of ignore them, right? They float nice and high, and you know. But if it was an ugly tin, lots of them, millions of them, we would notice it, right? And they're all connected by ropes and stuff, right? And then imagine there was something for air and something for everything else, and the ugly solar panels instead of lovely leaves, because leaves are like solar panels. They connect the light and they turn it into energy, right? And then every day you'd have a knock on your door and there'd be a robot and it says, "This is the food made by the system, the Earth system," right?
Yeah.
Imagine then. One thing you would realize from such an ugly, horrible system is that somebody made it. Like, you can't imagine this massive system full of ropes and tins and whatever, and a robot coming to your door. You would definitely say, "Who made you? Where did you come from?" Right?
Yeah.
Okay. But because nature is so beautiful, so perfect, so streamlined, you don't even know, you don't hear it going, and you don't need to put some oil to keep it working, right?
Yeah.
Okay? Because it works so perfectly, because it's so great, we ignore it and we take it for granted, which is really weird. So the better the system, the more we ignore it. And somehow this amazing system called nature, we don't think there's a God behind it. But if it was a rubbish system, we would go, "Oh, yeah, there's something behind it, making it." Right? So that's a really weird thing. Okay. And it's the opposite of what it should be. If it's better, we should think it's a better creator. Is a there's a God behind it, right? But anyway, that's just kind of just to help people visualize it because people take things for granted. Okay. So anyway, and there's a second thing, okay, about the meaning of life. So, first of all, we kind of know there's a God, but that's kind of even just the beginning of what I'm going to say, right? Okay, there's a funny thing called a conscience. Now, you might not think it's conscience. You might think a conscience is a religious thing, but actually, psychologists have been talking about the conscience as an amazing and mysterious thing for a very long time because psychologists will tell you, actual psychologists, not religious people, they'll say conscience is not in your control. Okay. If you do a bad thing, it will tell you off. If you're a bank robber and you really like the money that you robbed, it will tell you off. He'd be like, hang on, you annoying conscience. I don't want you to tell me off. I just rob loads of money. I want to be happy with it, but it won't let you. So psychologists have long known about this, but loads of people don't know that psychologists know about this, and it's not just religious people. But anyway, so I'm going to try to squeeze in a bit of what I wanted to really say, continuing on the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy theme. The movie has a point. Okay, it says the question, what is the meaning of life, doesn't make sense. Like, how can anything have meaning? How can life have meaning? It's a bit of a weird question. Okay, so I agree with the movie in that sense, right? Okay, so the correct question, okay, because in the movie it kind of says, well, the computer who's supposed to figure out the meaning of life says your question doesn't quite make sense, and so what you need to find out, the computer says to the human beings, you need to find out what the question of life is. Okay, so here's the question of life. I think the better question of life is, what is the purpose of life? Because that's very exact. Like, what is the function? Like, if I say, what's the purpose of this TV remote? Yeah, then you can tell me. Like, if I said, what's the meaning of this TV remote? It's a bit weird. Okay, but actually, I don't totally disagree with the question of what's the meaning of life, because when you say what's the meaning of life, it's kind of saying, like, not what's this job, like, why are we here physically, but like, why is it a good job? Why does it make us feel good about our lives? But that's kind of a bit deeper, and I'll go into that later, right? But anyway, so, but before I even answer what is the meaning of life, we need to go back to this thing. Okay, now this idea that in the movie they make fun of it. The reason why they say the meaning of life is 42 is because they're basically trying to say there is no meaning of life. And what I'm going to try to say, or what I kind of said earlier on when I described the earth as one big machine, when you realize the earth is one big machine and it works so amazingly to provide us food and everything we need, okay, is we must realize there must be a God. And not only must we realize there must be a God, there's another thing we must realize, that if, imagine there's a massive machine and it's all designed to provide you food, so that there's less in this funny world, there's a robot and he comes to your house every day and he provides this luxury food to you. You must realize that you must be an important part of that machine. Not part of the machine, but you must be very important, let's say, for a whole machine, earth-like machine, to create food for you. Does that make any sense?
Kind
Right?
of. Well,
Kind
kind of, yeah. Sort of. It kind of does make a little bit of sense, but then sometimes you can become dependent on it. Sometimes, in a sense, or
Yeah, I know what you mean. You maybe get comfortable, but the point of what I was trying to say is that people, what has that got to do with the meaning of life? Okay, is that people think that their lives are meaningless, but if they realize that God or whatever creator has done so much work to keep you alive, why would that God do all that work if your life was completely pointless? Why would he make this massive earth, which has all these systems to keep you alive, right? It's a hint that your life is important, why your hair is important. Okay, if you could physically see a massive machine, imagine millions of machines and they're all just trying to make food for you, and they come to your door and they've got spoons and they say, here's food, come and open your mouth, eat, right? Wouldn't you feel important?
you would feel
Kind of,
kind of, yes, you would.
right?
But
But now, if we rewind a little bit and these machines are invisible, but they still provide you with food all the time, your KFC that you love so much, right? Okay. Like, maybe you don't feel so important just because it's invisible, but that KFC didn't grow, that chicken didn't happen by itself. Do you know
no,
what I mean? So
no.
that's why we take it for granted, and that's why we feel less important.